The following program may contain subject matter and language suitable for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
And welcome back to another episode of The Meltdown. I'm Norm.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm still Norm.
And I'm still Jeff.
Yeah, and we want to say welcome to all of you, every man and woman who's watching the show. I didn't say child because really children shouldn't be watching just yet, because Jeff likes to say fuck a lot.
I think that's you, Norm, but what the fuck, whoever.
Exactly. So now, is it wrong to say man or woman? Because man, of course, has the word man in it, and so does woman.
Yeah.
So should it be people and wha-people? So we welcome people and wha-people to the show, because today we're talking about political correctness, and just how crazy it is. On the show, we're going to discover where the term actually came from, when it was kind of, where did political correctness originate? Now, if you're thinking North America, you're wrong.
Wow.
And also, we're gonna talk about some stupid political correctness things. But here's one of the things, Jeff. I'll start off because I don't like this topic. I mean, I don't like the fact that it exists. I think it's ridiculous. I think there's some measure that's not, but for the most part, it's gone way out of hand. The pendulum has swung way over the other side. Quick example: when my son, who's just bought his first car and is moving out in the summer, was younger, we used to take him to soccer. He played soccer, kind of a non-competitive, fun league, whatever, but they still compete, right?
Yeah.
Got team A, team B, both of them want to win, so on and so forth. After a while, we started getting emails from the soccer club saying, parents, please don't cheer when your children score goals, and please don't cheer when they win a game. It's really not fair to the losers, and we don't want to hurt their feelings. Now, I can't think of a bigger example of political correctness, and also one of the stupidest ones, because what are you teaching your kids?
Yeah.
If you can't cheer for a win, I'm sorry, but that's part of life. And another one is the school system. How when I was young, I never got held back a grade. I don't know if you did. I'm assuming you did.
No,
Just kidding.
3 times.
Yeah. But when I was young, if you didn't pass at the end of the year, you had to repeat the year.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that's done because they don't want to hurt the person's feelings. And the problem with that is you're now sending really stupid people out into the workforce. And the same example with the soccer about the whole, competitive thing and striving to win something. When these kids get into the workplace, they're going to be in for a huge shock, because guess what? In their jobs, if they're just going to coast along and do nothing, their ass is going to get fired. And you know whose fault it is? It's yours. That's right. You've got to teach your kids that, yes, you got to teach them about winning versus losing, and they should be able to celebrate a win. That's ridiculous. And they should have to work hard to get somewhere, not just coast. The ones who coast are only going to go so far, but the ones who really apply themselves will do well. And it all starts when they're kids, I think.
I mean, that's a really strange story. I mean, it's interesting because there is an issue with adult behavior, misbehavior at sporting events. 4 or 5 years ago, I worked at the Bell Sensplex, and some of the behavior of the adults was crazy.
I imagine
the verbal abuse of referees and all of that. But to discourage parents and whoever else from cheering, I mean, that's a very positive thing. And if my child is playing soccer and somebody on the opposition scores a goal against my child, who's maybe the goalie, and the other team cheers. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not laughing at the person who's losing. You're cheering the positive thing, and I don't see anything wrong with that. So that is definitely political correctness taken too far. Yes, there's a huge issue with adults being abusive verbally at I know certainly at hockey arenas. I don't know if it goes on so much at.
But that's just being an asshole. That's not being politically incorrect.
Exactly. Yeah. Of course, you should be able to cheer when your son or daughter scores a goal or whatever the case may be. You know.
And just to top off that story, we cheered.
That's
damn
good.
Right.
Well, good for you. You should.
Absolutely.
Cheering is very positive. It's that's the way it should be. You know. I mean, that's a positive thing. You should never be discouraged from doing something positive.
Exactly. 100%. I agree with you, Jeff. So, where did political correctness come from? What are the roots? Let's find out with our Meltdown Fun Facts. All right, so this is from encyclopedia.com, and I found this absolutely fascinating. Political correctness, the origin. The term political correctness was first used in the innumerable and acrimonious discussions among communist ideologues that took place both in Russia and among members of communist parties abroad after the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. The term was used, without any irony, to judge the degree of compatibility of one's ideas or political analysis with the official party line in Moscow. Because the Kremlin position kept twisting in response to nationalist and personal interests much more than to ideological consistency, staying politically correct required agile intellectual gymnastics. After the demise of international communism around 1990, when there no longer was a correct official line to be measured against, political correctness took on a second life as a term of derision used mostly by ideologues on the right. The term was now meant to ridicule or stigmatize conformity with the opinions or simply the vocabulary of liberal or leftist intellectuals, mostly in academic circles. The principal targets of that ridicule were generally movements aiming to reduce prejudice and stigmatization against racial and ethnic groups, women, homosexuals, people with disabilities, and other marginalized groups. Since the most noticeable change brought by such movements was the adoption and diffusion of neologisms and euphemisms aimed at enfranchising such groups, the semantics of tolerance became the main butt of ridicule, notably gender-neutral language. For example, chairperson, the use of new ethnic labels such as Native American for American Indian, Roma for Gypsy, or Inuit for Eskimo. Or euphemisms such as differently abled for disabled or educationally challenged for slow learner. Intellectual climates keep changing, however, so that what may appear to be the menacing shadow of political correctness from the left may eventually be neutralized by a rising tide of conservatism from the religious right and the intelligent design movement. Reason and sanity, it seems, are always under attack from the left, from the right, or indeed from both simultaneously. Now, the university campus is the main theater for such jousts, and thus also the main depository of much nonsense. In the end, each swing of the ideological pendulum leaves a little residue of good sense. We must, however, be vigilant that the university remains the one venue where anything can be said fearlessly, and thus where political correctness has no place. Any restriction on intellectual discourse, even when internally generated, clashes with the central mission of the university, namely the critical examination of ideas and the diffusion of knowledge. If political correctness is at the center of everything, you really can't have a conversation because, you can't be listened to if you don't use the correct terminology and so on and so forth.
Yeah, if you sort of feel restricted in what you have to say because of political correctness, I mean, do you have free academic debates? Are you being restricted? So you mentioned universities and colleges where there is supposed to be intellectual freedom. You're supposed to be able to state your opinion, even if it is quite provocative. It's the same with libraries, for example. There's supposed to be places where you can go and express yourself or do your research, regardless of what your belief system is and all of that. So there are certainly institutions, universities, libraries, etc., where at least theoretically people should not be burdened by political correctness, that they should be able to state their opinion, however provocative. And so that's kind of what you just touched on there a few moments ago.
Yeah, so I found that really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So now let's turn the tables and look at some of these most ridiculous political correctness situations with some meltdown, stupidness. All right, here is some political correctness gone mad. The BBC has dropped the use of the terms before Christ, BC, and Anno Domini, AD, on one of their programs and decided that the terms before Common Era and Common Era are more appropriate. Okay. I don't care so much about that one. Here's another one. The European Parliament introduced proposals to outlaw titles stating marital status, such as Miss and Mrs., so as not to cause offense. It also meant that Madame and Mademoiselle, Frau and Fraulein, and Senora and Senorita would be banned. Now, come on. Who are you Okay, if I'm going to introduce, I'm at a party and I introduce, this is my wife, Mrs. So-and-so, who the fuck is going to be offended by that?
It's what you choose. If you want to be called Mr. or Ms. or Mrs., I think it should be up to you to be called what you want to be called.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. But they're talking about changing it as not to offend other people. The hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey, if you're Mrs. Smith, then that doesn't offend me. You're Mrs. Smith, because if that's who you choose to be.
Just means you have no shot with her.
Yeah, well, yeah. What else is new?
Here's another one. Throughout several U.S. councils and organizations, any terms using the word man as a prefix or suffix have been ruled as not being politically correct. Manhole is now referred to as a utility or maintenance hole.
Well, that is true. It's still a bit ridiculous.
It's still a bit ridiculous, but okay. Here's one. Lovable cartoon rogue Dennis the Menace has been given a politically correct makeover. BBC chiefs decided to take away his edge in the remake. Gone are his bombs, catapult, water pistol, and pea shooter, and in their place is a simple boyish grin. So there you go. Dennis the Menace is not really a menace anymore. He's just Dennis. So they're going to have to change the name.
He doesn't get into trouble anymore. He leaves Mr. Wilson alone.
Yeah, he probably does his shopping now and probably gives him his medication. Who knows?
Sounds pretty boring.
Do you know what a spotted dick is?
Well, Norm.
Well, Norm, now I got some cream and it all went away.
No, I don't know what a spotted dick is.
Well, spotted dick, a classic English dessert, has been renamed to avoid embarrassment. The traditional pud Spotted Dick has been given the title Spotted Richard after UK council bosses feared the original name might cause offense. Now, tell me something. When I asked you what a spotted dick was, were you offended?
No, I was laughing because it's hilarious, the image of a spotted dick.
Now, if you were
And see, the name Dick and Richard, I mean, my father's name is Richard, and throughout his life, he's often been called Dick by certain people. My dad's not offended by it, so if my dad's not offended by it, then no one should be.
So there. Jeff said so.
And my dad is not politically correct. He just says whatever he wants on his mind. He's always been like that.
Yeah, well, we're kind of the same way. Okay, here we go. A school in Seattle renamed its Easter eggs Spring Spheres to avoid causing offense to people who did not celebrate Easter. Now, again, I find this is so stupid. I mean, come on. If one group of people has something called Easter eggs and this other group don't celebrate, well, then so they don't celebrate. It doesn't mean you have to change what you do just because I'm not into it. Yeah. Well, where the hell did that come from?
I don't know.
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
All right, well, here's an interesting one. And a UK council has banned the term brainstorming and replaced it with thought showers, as local lawmakers thought the term may offend epileptics. I don't know what to say to that. That's just weird. I mean,
well, see, that's a difficult one to react to because I kind of see what they're getting at, even though that really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Brainstorm.
Okay, here's one you'll love, Jeff. Again from the UK. A UK recruiter was stunned when her job advert for reliable and hardworking applicants was rejected by the job center, as it could be offensive to unreliable and lazy people.
Well, yeah.
And I'm sure all the unreliable and lazy people are at the job center every day, hard looking for work. For Christ's sake, all right.
So you can't describe what you require in an employee, because employee that potential employee that doesn't meet those standards might be offended.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to hire him anyway, so I don't understand. This whole thing is just dumb. Okay, here's another one. In 2007, Santa Clauses in Sydney, Australia, were banned from saying ho ho ho. Their employer, the recruitment firm Westaff, that supplies hundreds of Santas across Australia, allegedly told all trainees that ho 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 could frighten children and be derogatory to women. Why? Well, because ho 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 is too close to the American, not Australian, mind you, slang for prostitute. Although I thought a prostitute was just a hoe, not a ho ho ho. Ho 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 in my mind is 3 prostitutes.
What if you're a child and what you want for Christmas is a garden hoe? So you say to Santa Claus, I want a garden tool. And Santa Claus asks, well, what do you mean, a hoe? I mean, he's allowed to say the word hoe in that case? I mean, it gets confusing.
Santa, that's disgusting. I don't want no hoe. Okay, so those are just some ridiculous examples. Now here's something, and at the taping of this show, of course, our sitting current Prime Minister is Justin Trudeau, who considers himself a feminist. And I guess also a leader of political correctness. And he's coined a term, people kind. Do you remember that? That was in the news. Now, here's the interesting thing. How it came about. He was in a bit of a scrum. A reporter asked a question, and I don't remember the question, forgive me, but it was something to the tune of, how will this affect mankind in the future? Okay, number one, he avoided answering the question by saying this, and then it was just kind of dropped, but it was also the way he said it. After the question, how will this affect mankind in the future, Justin Trudeau said, oh, we prefer the term people kind. Which kind of just shut everybody down because they were stunned, going, huh? And then the second question is, who's we? Nobody says people kind. Who's we? Is he talking about Canada? Is he talking about his family? I mean... Okay, let's get rid of the word man, Jeff. Okay, I want to come into your house and I'm going to see you put your phone on your personal piece. All right?
Yes.
You don't keep it on the mantelpiece anymore. It's the personal piece. What else?
Well, there's the Museum of Man in Ottawa, which got changed to Museum of Civilization.
That's
now,
right,
from a scientific point of view,
that makes sense.
Changing it Museum of Civilization actually makes sense.
Exactly.
Scientifically, that's a better term.
Yeah.
But
what's the thing? I look like personal handling you. I'm person handling Jeff.
Yes. Even though you are a man, but I guess I'm not allowed to say that you're a man.
And then, of course, don't get stung by that personity in the ocean. Fuck's sake.
Personity.
I'm telling you, man. Okay, here's one thing. I want to leave you with this thought. Now, Jeff, you and I are both males. I don't want to verify that on camera, but I'm pretty sure we're both males,
yeah,
right?
I'm pretty sure about that.
So maybe as males, we're not really offended, nor do we even ever think about the word man as opposed to person or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe as men we don't really care because the whole thing was kind of based on our sex, right? So maybe if we were women, we would have a problem with it, or we would at least be able to see the incongruency there, that it's kind of more slated to that. I don't know. There's a lot of things that do make sense and a lot of things that don't. The examples that we read in stupidness, I just think they were ridiculous.
Well, if in your words, if you are still being inclusive and not exclusive, I think that's the key. It's what the words say overall. So if you're using the word man, but you're still clearly inclusive for both sexes, for all races, etc., then I don't think there's anything wrong with using certain terms. I think it's overall what you say. And if you have a message of everybody together, we're all in this together, we're all equals, then I don't think you have to watch what you say when it comes down to one particular word.
True that. Very well said.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's leave it there, and be kind to each other, and have your animal spayed or neutered. I've always wanted to say that at the end of a show, so I just thought I would. It has nothing to do with political correctness. I just thought, what the hell? No. So we will see you next week for another episode of The Meltdown. Until then, cheerio!
Bye!